Good morning. This public hearing, conducted by the Committee on Appropriations, Public Debt, Legal Affairs, Retirement, Public Parks, Recreation, Historic Preservation, and Land, will now come to order. Notices for this public hearing were provided as required by law, and we have numerous bills on today. I apologize. We have some federal visitors in, so I'm going to have to take a recess between 10 and 11. So I'm going to try to get as many of you on before I recess at 10, and we've asked some people to come back at 11 so that we can continue the discussion at 11 for the remaining bills. So let's get this started. And with everybody's indulgence, we're going to call the bills out of order. And we'll start with Bill 287 and 332. I understand that the two of them are companion bills, and the sponsor of the legislation, Senator Tina Munya-Barnes, will give the opening introductory comments.
Sijus Masi, Mr. Chair, and Manana Sijus, to all of you here this morning. I'd like to thank everybody for being here. The bills, the pair of bills that need to be considered together, Mr. Chair, is because they involve one property that is being exchanged for two separate parcels of property. The larger parcel is located in Asinan, Chalampago, and the two smaller parcels are located in Derrido, next to the existing public health center, and in Tamuning, located right next to the Healing Hearts Center. The portion of the lot in Asinan that is reserved for public health is approximately 17 acres, and there are families that are currently residing and farming on that lot. These families, as I am informed, would be eligible for Chamorro Land Trust leases, and the lot in Derrido is approximately 2 acres, and the lot in Tamuning is approximately 1 acre. The two smaller lots are in the Chamorro Land Trust inventory. The Asinan property is not. So by allowing this exchange, the Chamorro Land Trust will have a net increase of approximately, if not like 13 acres or so. On the Derrido lot, it is proposed that an environmental health lab be built to benefit not only Guam, but the region as well. The Tamuning lot is slated for the proposed foster care, and I know that you made some commitments to hear Bill 332 first, but that's the reason why I wanted to share with you the importance of listening to both 332 and 287, because it needed a collaboration on both bills. And I want to acknowledge the First Lady for being here and supporting the efforts of the foster care home legislation. Sainamasi, Mr. Chair, and I hope to hear a lot from the public.
Thank you. I want to also welcome my colleagues that have joined me this morning. Early as usual was Senator Aileen Yamashita, Senator Tina Munya-Barnes, Senator Tony Atta, Senator Tom Atta, and Senator Frank Eichen. I want to thank them for joining us, and also I would like to express the honor of the committee that the First Lady is joining us this morning. I would have called her first, but I understand that it is her desire that the agency heads who are speaking set the stage, and she will be the closer. Is that the way that we're doing this? So we'll have the agency heads speak. Mr. Gillum, Mr. Duenas, Mr. Camacho, and Mr. Borja. Which are both? Yeah, they'll come up there. And I also want to acknowledge the first recipient of the Justicia Award, Sister Bridget Paris.
Bravo.
Who wishes to speak first? You were signed up first.
Somebody signed me first. The First Lady was gracious enough also to allow me to go first, just to set
the scenario for Bill 332-32, which will allow for the transfer of the property to allow us to build a foster care facility. The property in Tamuning adjacent to the Healing Arts Center will be used to construct a foster home, and as you know, sadly, many of our children are being left abandoned, abused, and alone. The numbers keep rising, and we have a need to provide a better living environment for these children. You know, the number is always a moving number. Sometimes it's low, depending upon the whether school's in session. I notice that most of our referrals to CPS drop when school is out, and then go back up to an average of about 10 a day. And some of those necessitate a need to remove the children to a shelter. What we're really talking about here, though, are those children who are more difficult to place in foster care, those who are either difficult because of age, because of their disabilities, and the trending now is to try to move, you know, those children into a more community-like involvement rather than a shelter hidden away, a crisis kind of environment where the tension is there all the time, and probably not a good location for these children who have enough to deal with because they're not being picked. They're there waiting for somebody to love them, to take them, but they're not. So I think putting this facility together in Tamuning, in that beautiful location, close to the hospital, close to schools, shopping, you know, a regular, just community environment, a real living environment rather than that special location that we also need. No question about that. And I think it's time to do this, and we have support of any number of organizations, and I know that the First Ladies group is one of the first ones who wants to step forward to help us put this together. GURA, we're hopeful to use a community development block grant that will also benefit other members in the community. It will not just be for those children in that environment. If we had that location only as a crisis center, we would not be able to use the community development block grant, because that would entail services also available to the rest of the community. So I think that, again, placing these children who are indeed difficult to place, and there's numbers in the attachments there that show you the number of children who we have difficulty placing because of either age or disability. And I want to thank the 8 senators who signed on to this. And of course, Senator Barnes, Senator Yamashita, instrumental with it. Some of the data in here is old because we had anticipated having this hearing earlier. But we can give you as much updated as you wish. The hard numbers probably will require to keep this facility running and operating is probably around $290,000 a year. That can be offset a lot by the involvement of groups like the First Ladies group, any other interested community members who want to participate in this operation. But we think it'll be a little bit less than what it costs to run the crisis center, because that's just again a different environment. We're hopeful that we can get some quick passage on this, so that we can get started looking for development partners. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Mr. Vice Speaker and members of the committee. GURA is pleased to support Bill 332 to exchange properties between the Department of Public Health and Social Services and the Chamorro Land Trust Commission, located in Chalampago and the Tamuning area respectively. Public Health provides critical services to Guam's foster children by funding the operations of the island's only dedicated foster care facility. Funding the alley shelter for children has served the needs of foster children for many years. Yet still more is needed to care for these children at this delicate and frightening time in their young lives. Public Health recognized that a change in approach to this population was needed. They now seek support of this legislative body to secure the Tamuning site to develop an appropriate facility to care for foster children. This Tamuning site is ideal for the development of a dedicated foster facility. The property size, zoning, and location near health and safety facilities and other supportive services for children make it well suited for the proposed project. Also, Public Health's network of partners, non-government organizations, government and private supporters, is poised to make this project happen. GURA counts itself in support and applauds Public Health in their efforts to care for foster children through such challenging times. I want to thank Senator Barnes for introducing the legislation and the committee for holding the public hearing this morning. Mr. Gillen mentioned earlier about the possibility of using community development block grant funds for this facility. We've had long discussions with Public Health. Generally speaking, HUD's position is foster care needs are, the children in foster care programs are considered wards of the state, and that it should be the government's responsibility, the local government or state government's responsibility to care for their needs and to support their needs financially. But what we're looking, what we're looking at is that there are some services that may qualify for funding under the CDBG program. In particular, we're looking at counseling services for the families and other services that are intended to help reintegrate the family. Those activities or the costs associated for those facilities, including the prorated share of the cost of construction, can become eligible for the CDBG program. We just need to basically ensure that families there meet HUD's income limits. And that's why we're involved with this particular facility. Thank you.
Thank you. And you and I may have used up all the CDBG grant money on that when we built Sanctuary.
No. The problems are still out there, and we do get $3 million a year to address them as the year.
But that was a project that we worked on when I was chairman and you were at GURA.
Yes. Sanctuary is one of our first of our largest the facilities that we built. We actually ended up building 3 structures for Sanctuary on property that was in our inventory and was not suited for residential development. And so the partnership with Sanctuary has been very fruitful over the years. Although we're not actively funding them now, their operations, we're always monitoring and making sure the facilities are being used for the intended purposes.
And I continue to thank you for your assistance at that time. Mr. Borja, I guess.
Good morning, Mr. Vice Speaker, members of this committee. My name is Michael Borja. I've submitted 2 written testimony on this bill, one as the Director of Land Management and one as the Administrative Director of the Chamorro Land Trust Commission. Just to paraphrase it, as referenced in Public Law 2218, authority through legislative concurrence is granted to the Director of Land Management in consideration of subsequent placement of all available lands under the authority of the Chamorro Land Trust Commission for the use of Chamorro homelands. By virtue of this, a portion of the subject land, lot number 3470, containing an area of over 117 acres, located in the municipality of Orta Chalampago, was identified and reserved for the Department of Public Health and Social Services for a children's foster home. Additionally, lot number 5173-1-R2-News-6 in the municipality of Tamuning assumed the status of Chamorro homelands and placed under the control of the Commission. At a Chamorro Land Trust Commission regular meeting on June 20, 2013, the CLTC Board approved the exchange of properties mentioned in the bill between CLTC and the Department of Public Health and Social Services. Given the topography of the land in Chalampago and the legal or regulatory requirements, this property may not be desirable for the needs of public health. However, it is vitally important to point out 2 matters driving our position on this matter. First, we acknowledge the fact that the Chalampago property remains an important land asset, with portions having been leased to recipients for farming purposes in this respect. It already makes sense that we continue to use it for farming and agriculture. Secondly, by removing the portion of the property from public health inventory, we are freeing up the land to apply other less restrictive but more logical use, such as agricultural purposes. A physical inspection of the property indicates physical and geographical attributes, including extreme slope variations and natural vegetation, that makes it more attractive for agricultural and farming uses versus the construction of a public health facility, which will be quite costly, as that will require significant civil engineering infrastructure development and construction. For clarity, we ask that a couple of items be amended in the bill, which I've listed in our written testimony. We support this land exchange, as the establishment of a children's foster care home would provide an essential service and benefit to the community and all children placed in the unfortunate circumstances of becoming foster children. Furthermore, lot number 5173, proximity to the hospital and clinics around the area makes this an ideal location for the children living in the foster home who may also need medical attention. The overall effect of this land exchange is a positive win for all affected parties. CLTC gets a net increase in property, existing lessees will not be displaced, and our island's increasing need for foster care facilities would be remedied. We ask you to please pass Bill number 332-32 with our suggested amendment. On the other testimony from the Chamorro Land Trust Commission, the Chamorro Land Trust Commission does support this bill. The property is held in reserve as a result of Public Law 2218, and this transfer would exchange 5 acres from Chalampago for 1 acre in Tamuning. And the reasons that the board has for supporting this legislation are as follows. CLTC will realize a 4-acre gain in the process, which is more land to be available. The existing land in Chalampago is not conducive to construction without significant civil engineering, and this existing land in Chalampago is more suited for agriculture. Portions of the existing land in Chalampago has been issued out to qualified recipients previously, and displacing or relocating those individuals would be difficult for all parties. A public health facility to be built on the exchange property in Tamuning would be best suited for its needs, and we believe that the clients served by the new public health facility would most likely be Chamorro, and from families also qualified to be recipients of the Chamorro Land Trust. On June 20, 2013, during a regularly scheduled monthly meeting, the commissioners discussed this land transfer and moved to permit the transfer without opposition. For the reasons stated above and through an approved motion, the commissioners of the Chamorro Land Trust Commission support Bill number 332-32 and urge its passage.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Camacho, will you be speaking also?
Our director already explained explain about Bill 332 and 287 at the same time. It's all filtered down to the same property and all those things. The only thing that I need to address is there's some correction on the bill.
I think he has that in his testimony,
Okay,
the
so,
amendments that he wants.
Other than that, Mr. Chair, I just want to address the community, the senators that on that lot number up at Sinan, there are already 54 acres of property that were designated for a notice of intent to issue out to agricultural leases. There's one actual lease that has been addressed already, has been signed, and as I said, as Mr. Bora said, it's very hard for us to replace or to remove those people to another piece of property. And again, the topography of that property up there is more suitable for agricultural need than for us to build building in which is going to cost more than what the property's value. And we fully support the intent of the bill. We support the passage of 332 and 287.
Thank you. I think the two of you are going to have your hands full dealing with the neighborhood, because if I remember correctly, you were at land management when there was the issue of the school on that same street. I think on the other side of
Right.
the Healing Hearts. So you will have to deal with that. So somebody had better grease that skid to make sure you can get past that that bump. Okay? Does anybody have questions of this panel?
I just want to clarify, the 1 acre property in Tamuning is Chamorro Land Trust property,
Correct.
and the 5 acres in Chalampago is,
Right, the 5 acres is the reserve portion for public health, part of the reserve portion for public health.
what was the basis of the 5 acres, the 1 to 5?
Well, what it's going to come out to here is that there's a total of 8 acres that's reserved for public health, and we're going to be needing 3. One for this facility, and then in a later bill we'll be discussing another 2 acres. So there'll be 3 acres altogether that public health will be wanting in exchange for the 8.
On a value for value?
Well, on a value for value, we do not have an appraisal on for a value for value on that. We're looking at just acreage at this time.
Okay.
Thank you very much. You do? Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick question, just because we're at the public hearing stage. Now, the 2 properties that are going to be exchanged, one you already have targeted for specific uses. Is there any need for a rezoning at this point in time so that the project can proceed as quickly as possible? Or does the zoning allow for the facilitation of whatever structure you're going to be able to build on this property?
No, Senator, I don't think we need adjourning.
Okay, so it's sufficient to meet the needs
It is
of what the
sufficient.
plans are. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. I guess some of you are going to stay for the next, but I don't want to keep the First Lady waiting. And so I will hear her testimony. And Sister Bridget, did you wish? And then we'll call you back up on 287. Thank you very much, First Lady. You honor us, please.
Good morning, Vice Speaker, Senator Uggan, Senator Ada, Senator Yamashita, and Senator Barnes. When I meet you out there, any one of you, especially the 2 ladies, as we are both mothers, I think just the twinkle in our eyes just always stated my desire to try to build something for those children who are in need. So I thank you both for this meeting, and Vice Speaker, thank you so much. I'm certain that everyone in this room heard news reports confirming that a 3-month-old infant died after being left in a car this weekend. And as we all try to come to terms with this tragedy, the judicial process is taking its course as we speak. Though many of us are still praying for understanding and guidance of such a senseless loss, the loss of this child was not only a tragedy. With 3 older siblings, 3 children who live only with memories of their lost little baby. This painful memory, and perhaps the most heart-wrenching of all, there are 3 children living in a terrible nightmare without their mother's comforting embrace or their father's gentle reassurance. Today I come before you to remind this community of the untold follow-up story that rarely makes the headlines. You see, the angel we lost this weekend lives in the hearts of the siblings who will never forget. Siblings who are taken away from their parents, unable to ask their mother any questions, unable to start a healthy healing process. 3 new children are now part of the government's responsibility in the foster care program. With God's grace, these children are in the care of family, but theirs is a best case scenario, a rare one at that. As the Regalo Foundation honed in on its mission to bring greater awareness for foster care programs on Guam, we discovered 3 critical facts that I believe you, as our elected leaders, I ask to help prioritize as you consider this bill. Today, there are only 144 foster children on Guam. At any given time, this number can rise well above 200. Today, there are only 26 licensed foster families, most of whom already are caring for a foster child, and this number rarely rises above 40. If a child cannot be placed in a temporary shelter, a foster home, or with family members, there is no place to place this child. And we are lucky that we do have sanctuary, and oftentimes children are placed in the Department of Youth Affairs, which to me is an unfair punishment of a child who has done nothing wrong. Senators, this legislation before you requests that you approve the exchange of parcel of land under the purview of the Department of Public Health and Social Services for the Department of Public Health, a piece of parcel of land under the purview of the Chamorro Land Trust. This land transaction will allow Public Health and the Guam Housing Urban Renewal Authority to build a new emergency shelter, a safe place for children in need. As part of our mission to help Guam's neediest children, community partners like the Regalu Foundation will help displaced children find a way for a home during unimaginable circumstances. To clear, the Regalu Foundation, along with our public sector partners, are simply requesting the land necessary to initiate the construction process. In fact, I assure you this testimony that the Regalu Foundation's primary involvement in this project is our commitment as a community nonprofit that will help make this shelter a home away from home. Our goal is to support our child support services, miracle workers, in their mission to adequately support children in need. The Regalu Foundation is committed to augmenting the shelter's services through nonprofit funds. In short, as Guam's First Lady and a proud advocate for Guam's foster children, I fully support Bill number 332-32. This is the next step in the public-private partnership that will help ensure that all Guam's children will have the same opportunities to build a bright and successful future. With faith and great hope in your leadership, I beseech you, please act expeditiously in the passage of this legislation. The quicker we take action, the faster we can build a world of opportunities for every child. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of Guam's foster children.
Thank you very much, Madam First Lady, for your testimony and especially for your work with Regalu. I spent the last 30 years trying to get the number of foster homes over 30, and I commend you for getting it to near 40, but that just is unacceptable. And things have happened, Sister Bridget, in our community that I'm not very proud of, and one of them just was last month when we dedicated Gumat Serenidad. That was not I refused to go to that one because I just thought that was an indictment on the community, that we have to have a receiving home to receive Manampu that had been abused by their families. I mean, it just is heartbreaking. So I want to thank you for your efforts in Regalu, and especially thank Sister Bridget, who has been at this for 50 years, Sister. I mean, I don't know how you have the strength to do it, man. But you were very deserving of the First Justicia Award for everybody to understand that you have devoted your life to justice for all. And please, your testimony.
Good morning, Vice Speaker, my dear senators, and to all of you present here, half a day. For 21 years, the Children's Shelter opens its door for disadvantaged children because of abuse or neglect. We are here to seek your support. How can we help our children, our brothers and sisters, build a shelter, a home for them? For 10 years, I have worked tirelessly, diligently to find ways to make this a reality come true. 8 long years went by, but to no avail. We need a home for these children. In the past, I have approached several senators to acquire the land to make this project for our children a reality. Definitely, a home is much needed in our island in order to solve the problem of our overcrowded environment the children are living in. Renting is not the solution. The present family home they are now using is not conducive. It does not meet the specification of the policy of public health. There are many challenges that needs to be addressed. Briefly, the number of children with different ages and different physical needs is just one example. Group of children need space. It is not a healthy environment when children are using cots instead of bed, rooms not big enough. They could be using the living room for temporary sleeping quarters. This situation can go on for weeks, months, or years. I beg again, the children needs the lands desperately. Senators, each child is part of our life. These children are the future of our island. They need our help. Our efforts is to provide proper living conditions for these children. One of our goal or mission as people is that we exercise greater personal responsibility to do more, to learn more, and have more in order to be more. Working together for a better island requires that we help one another in a spirit of willingness and trust without raising insurmountable barriers. I emphasize again, a child needs a home. May we put our efforts together to create better dwelling, happy environment for our children who are deprived. I feel uncomfortable every day knowing that some children are not in a proper environment, especially during sleeping time. Let us go back in history. The Holy Family of Nazareth experienced initial rejection. Mary gave birth to her firstborn son and wrapped him in a swaddling clothes and laid him in a manger because there was no place for him or for them in the inn. Jesus, Mary, and Joseph knew what it meant, but the maternal heart of Mary and the compassionate heart of Joseph, the protector of the Holy Family, never doubted that God would always be with them. I have great trust and never doubted that you will address this issue to make it happen. So through the intercession of the Holy Family, may that same certainty dwell in the hearts of everyone here in this room, and more so with you, our elected leaders, our senators. I know that you all know that every human being is a child of God. He or she bears the image of Christ. With deep reflection, we ourselves need to see, and then to enable others to see, these children do not only represent a problem to be solved, but they are our brothers and sisters to be welcomed, protected, and loved. They are an occasion that Providence gives us to help build a home. To our First Lady, Christine, government official, Regalo board members, volunteers, to the children of Guam who are in need of this home, never lose hope that you too are facing a more secure future, that on your journey you will encounter an outstretched hand, and that you can experience fraternal solidarity and the warmth of friendship. To all of you, my dear senators, and those who devoted their lives and their efforts in helping to bring about the reality for this land to build on, I have great trust in you all. Kindly please include this bill in your next meeting. Be assured of my love and prayers. Thank you. Si Diyos maasi.
Thank you very much, sister, and I think you were much too humble. Ali has been around since I went to the bench, and so to say that you've been only working on this for 8 or 10 years, you're maybe for the foster home, but you have been taking care of abused and neglected families. I remember when we used to have to chase around to try to figure out where you were in Ordot and different homes that were being rented.
Yes.
And so I want to, again, at least on my behalf, and thank you very much for all the years of service that you've provided to the community, taking care of these children. I've been to the Ali shelter when you had it at the Guerrero home in Maina and saw the conditions, though it was the loving environment, it really was unsuitable for some of the children that had been there for, as you put it, months and years. And so we need to do something soon, and I'm glad that we have a foundation that is willing to try to take up that part. Unfortunately, we have to segment all of these into different parts that need to be addressed, only because our families are falling apart. I remember the only time that I almost became violent while I was on the bench was when I was trying to get a foster home for a young woman who had been abused. And I asked the grandmother, and she said she would, except for the fact that she had to go bowling on Friday and Tuesday. And that was the only time that I ever thought about striking somebody. But I just couldn't get over that. But really, sisters, thank you so much for all the years that you've served this community.
You're welcome, and thank you too. It's a pleasure for me to do all this for the people of Guam. Thank you.
Anybody?
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice Speaker, for first holding the hearing. And First Lady Christine, thank you. Sister Bridget, I have to state this. I do every time I have the chance, that your goodness, your representation of the belief in the goodness, I remember you were my 4th grade teacher. And yeah, and for some reason I was always in trouble, but you believed in me, and you were the beacon of hope. And so as I became a teacher, and as I'm doing this now, it just makes sense to me that you're still teaching and you're still believing in the goodness of people. And that's what gets us through. And so for me, that's one of the huge messages, is that it is about foster children, it is about foster families, but it's even bigger than that. It's about all of us. It's all about, what we all have in our hearts and what our responsibility is to believe in every single person and to ensure that everybody is safe. So this is a facility that is safe. And then, of course, the programming that's going to go into it, because the integration of those services that these particular children need. I'm looking at the tables, and it just, it strikes us all. Chamorros are at the top. And as the Vice Speaker just said, what a travesty it is what we're doing to our own families. So hopefully, we have a safe place, but we really work on programmings to stop the cycles and to go back to what we're supposed to be doing with each other. And it starts at the beginning of early childhood. And so, we just need to do that. And so the programming of foster children, I hope there's going to be segments or modules where we help those children, these young children, understand what's right and what's wrong, and all the wrong that was done to them. That means don't do it to anybody else. And to find that courage and that strength and the coping skills about how to move on. So I applaud your patience, and I'm glad you have become a little impatient, because sometimes that's what's needed. It's where is it? And so this is where we are. And I really do thank the Vice Speaker for holding this, because he didn't have to, but he did. And of course, Senator Tina Rose Munoz Barnes, who held the flag. So thank you very much, First Lady Christine. And I look forward to working with you about what goes now into this emergency home. And it really has to do, how do we stop the emergencies? How do we stop it from continuing? So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Vice Speaker.
Mr. Chair, for giving me the opportunity. I really just want to say thank you. Thank you to you, First Lady. Thank you, Sister, for never giving up on me. And everywhere we meet, everywhere we go, and we meet up with each other, it's always like, please help us. Don't give up on us. And I want to say to you, don't give up on us up here, because it's not always easy. It's not always easy to get the resources. It's not always easy to try and make things work. But our basic mission for government of Guam is to provide for the basic services and the needs of our island and our community. And you, too, have been at the forefront of making the difference for our children and our families. Like my colleague said up here, it's not easy when we have to read or look at what's happening to our families. We have to bring that family circle back. And by stepping up to the plate and giving of your time, I just want to say, for what you're doing for our children and our families. So we hope, and with a lot of cooperation, that we can make the necessary changes to make this bill even better, so that we can move forward to a true realization to help our children and our families. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the commitment and the promise to hearing this bill. Sainamasi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Madam First Lady, Sister, thank you for all that you do for foster children. You know, Madam First Lady, you said that, Guam only has 144 foster children. That's 144 too many. And there shouldn't be a reason why we have foster children, but these children don't ask to be placed in their situations that they're at. But they are where they are, and we need to help them as much as we can. And for you to be the voices for them in that way really means a lot. And my daughter, just late last year, has become a court-appointed advocate for foster children. And the irony to it is that my daughter has no children of her own, but she sees the importance of what it's about. It's about children that are placed in a situation that they did not ask to be placed. We look at this as a piece of property. 1 acre, 5 acres, doesn't matter. What's raw land anyway? When you put a facility there to help people, to ensure that their lives can become better and that we guide them in the right direction, then that would just show that they are loved regardless of what their situation is, and they can become better people. They can become better citizens to our island. And who knows, they could help one day and repay that and say, you know what, I was in this situation and I'm not going to let it happen to another child. So thank you for all that you do. And I'll let you know today, right now, that you have my full support on this bill. And I urge all my colleagues to come out and support this bill, because with raw land, you can't do it. You need a facility there to ensure that we can do what we can for our children. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this public hearing. And thank you also, Mr. Chairman, for being that advocate when you were in the courts. And Sister Bridget and First Lady, thank you once again.
Thank you very much. I know that both of you have other appointments to go to, so thank you. I'll invite the panel back, the first panel back, because some of the members have questions. I'd like to ask Mr. Santos and Mr. Nadeau to come forward also to provide their testimony on 287. I believe there's still some questions that some of the members have, so don't leave. But Tom, Albert, yes, you had some questions, right? So why don't you just add a couple of more chairs, and all of you come up. But let's hear Tom's, or you're going to be the one that testifies for? Okay. All right.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, I'd like to say thank you to these folks who are graciously given up their turn for us. We appreciate it very much. I know that
they're going to be heard.
I know they are, but I just know that it was very kind of them to allow us to do this.
Did you want to provide testimony on the other bill, Tom? On the?
Can we address 332 first?
Oh, hold on. Go ahead.
I just have questions of land management and / Chamorro Land Trust and GURA on Bill 332. Just as a follow-up to the question that Senator Uggan had asked earlier regarding zoning for the Tamuning property, is that currently zoned as R1? And I think the reason maybe for Senator Uggan asking that is, well, the response he got was no problem. That would be no problem at all. So maybe you need to clarify what do you mean by no problem at all?
We have for chief planner here, and could we invite him up there? He's the one that
Well,
doing all the zoning.
then maybe put more simply then is the property, I guess, to build the facility that is to be built on it, does that require a minimum of an R1 zone?
No, I believe so.
Actually, you can have that type of facility in the R1.
Yeah.
Speaking this mic.
In terms of the zoning, you can have that type of facility in there. Again, it's a foster home, and it's considered an institution. So you can have an R1, just like you can have schools in an R1 zone.
The reason why I'm
it's not
asking,
considered a public facility, though. Yeah.
and the reason why I'm asking is there's all this euphoria about we're going to have land, we got GURA stepping forward, provide the funding. And then we're going to find out later that, well, let's see, now we're going to have to wait several months to rezone. We're going to need several months to do this or that. So I think there was a legitimate basis for the senator asking about the zoning aspect of it.
Senator, I believe from what I've been advised that it most likely is an R2 already in that area, but we will definitely research this this afternoon and get back to you with an immediate answer on that. But if it's an R1, it can still be done with some conditions maybe, but it's not a multiple complex. It's not, but we believe it may be already R2.
Okay. The other thing is I noticed that earlier to my question about what was the basis for exchange? Was it for area or value for value? And I'm not sure that question, that response was clear enough.
Well, in the discussions, during the whole process that we were trying to search out land, I think at the time the late Monty Moffness as the administrative director of Chamorro Land Trust, as well as the director of land management, was in search for an appropriate property that suited the needs and the requirements that public health was looking for as well. And we were looking at an area for area, not a value for value. And in such, what we were also discussing within the as commissioners on the Chamorro Land Trust was that we were actually going to be keeping more land for the land trust because they would be giving up a total of 8 acres of reserve property and only requiring 3 for what their needs were going to be for this property, for the foster care facility, and later on we'll be discussing the laboratory. And that's what we were looking at, because in this area in Chalampago already, we had already been advised that not only was it unsuitable for building, but it was also much of the property had been issued out to people who were using it for agriculture, and we'd have to displace that.
I understand that, but I think typically when land exchanges have been made, it was always made on a value for value basis. So obviously, property in Tamuning, in an urban area like Tamuning with all the infrastructure and everything, the value of that 1 acre is probably a lot more than the value of 1 acre in the Asinan area, such that maybe I think you mentioned it was 3 acres of property in Asinan that public health was going to give up for this 1 acre in Tamuning. But maybe the value of that property in Tamuning really merits 5 or 6 acres. And if not doing it on a value for value basis, it really shortchanges Chamorro Land Trust. And I don't want to be the wet blanket in this whole thing about building the foster home and all that. I mean, I want to see that thing move forward too. But still, there's the stakeholder of Chamorro Land Trust. You're giving up a valuable piece of property, and maybe you're not getting a fair exchange. So, I quite frankly, I'm kind of concerned about that Section 3 where it waives the appraisal requirement, and we're just going to go in an area for area. And it comes down to maybe somewhat of an unfairness to the Chamorro Land Trust stakeholders.
Well, once again, Senator, when they were researching for a land, they were looking for someplace that they could build quickly. The infrastructure is not there at Chalampago to do this kind of facility, whereas it is in Tamuning.
That's right, and that's why the value of an acre in Asinan is probably just a fraction of the value of an acre in Tamuning. And so, there seems to be this inequity. And if it was just, from one government land to another, but now we're talking about the stakeholders of Chamorro Land Trust, so I'm just registering my concern with that. I guess, thank you for your responses. And my last question is actually to Gura then. I imagine there's been a lot of discussion going on, so I'm just curious as to how far Gura has been leaning forward to make this project happen. Has the funds actually been identified? Do we have the IFB package ready to go? Where are we at? Because if none of that is ready, it may be another year or two before we see, groundbreaking take place.
Senator, it's my understanding that I believe the governor has earmarked some DOI funds for this activity, but we are involved also in terms of how the CDBG program can assist in ensuring that the facility, the needed facility is constructed. And so we're looking at to what extent some of the activities that will be housed in that facility will be eligible under the CDBG program. The CDBG program and all the funds that we receive from HUD have to benefit low and moderate income families. And so what we've been discussing with Public Health is in designing the facility, what type of activities are going to be in there so that we can determine whether we can identify something as eligible under the CDBG program and then help with the funding for the facility that way by paying a prorated share or contributing a prorated share for the square footage that will be used for eligible activities. There has been some conceptual design work that's been done that I'm aware of, but in terms of any commitments, nothing has been signed at this point.
Thank you. And just one last thing, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Gillen looked like you were ready to blow a gasket there, so no? Okay.
Thank you.
That's all I got. Thank you.
As long as you're all still there, who wants to testify on 287?
How much time do we have, sir?
No, I'm not taking a recess. I'm going to run to my meeting, but Senator Frank Uggan is going to handle this meeting because everybody's here. We're not stopping.
Thank you.
It'll continue. Okay.
Yeah, I guess I'll start on this.
Good morning, gentlemen. Okay, Mr. Gillen.
Thank you, sir. Senators, thank you. Of course, we support the land exchange for the property indebted for this. And if this testimony is meant to scare you, it is. Okay. What we're talking about here is the construction of an environmental public health laboratory to be built in the area adjacent to the present common community health center in Dededo. Okay. The reason there are two things. We'd gotten some money from the Department of the Interior several years ago, $3 million to construct this lab. We'd spent some time looking at several possibilities, and one was to just go ahead and do some renovation and build it on the campus at Manilao. There were problems there with water runoff and whether or not there was adequate space for parking. We finally decided that this would probably be a better way to go. And really, when we talk about Public Law 22 whatever it is on some of this land that went back to the Chamorro Land Trust, the land on which the community health center sits in Dededo was originally public health land, and for some reason somebody dropped the ball and didn't initiate whatever was required to retain it. So now we had to go this route to go to the Chamorro Land Trust to get basically what was public health's land back anyway. But that's neither here nor there. What's important is that time is running. The $3 million is no longer worth $3 million, so the longer we go, the harder it gets. We're ready with construction documents. Are ready to go. not putting anything into the ground until this is actually approved, and if it's not approved, I'm not sure what we're going to do. But I'm not trying to, put you with a fait accompli where you have to approve this. But I think when you look at the numbers here, the public health need, okay, which is, which doesn't distinguish whether you're Chamorro, whether you're Filipino, whether you're what, everybody is potentially affected by the problems with mosquito-borne diseases, the problems with, again, food safety, the expansion of our technical capacities as an environmental health agency. All of this, outweighs any other issue as far as I'm concerned. In early 2011, Environmental Health was awarded, the Division of Environmental Health was awarded a $3 million capital improvement project grant from the Office of Insular Affairs, Department of Interior. The original proposal was to construct the laboratory on our existing property as an extension of the department's main central facility. However, an assessment by Gura, who was our project manager, revealed that the construction of the laboratory would require substantial renovation to the existing facility, thereby adversely impacting the laboratory's plans and specifications. Consequently, Public Health in Gura determined that an alternative location had to be considered to build a laboratory, and we believe that the Dedido property identified in Bill 287-32 is that suitable location. The Dedido property has already undergone an environmental assessment and obtained the clearances from Coastal Zone Management Program, the Historic Preservation Office of the Department of Parks and Rec, and the Guam Environmental Protection Agency. This property is also large enough to accommodate the future growth of the laboratory. And coincidentally, we have available for us through the Office of Economic Adjustment another $13 million once an initial study is done to build a public health full-blown laboratory. So this would be a complementary activity. It's also adjacent to the Northern Community Health Center, which may allow for the possible sharing of certain resources such as security, parking, and other assets, lowering our operation expense. In addition, the department has already secured the support of the Dedido Municipal Planning Council for the construction of the laboratory in their village. Attached to this testimony is a copy of that resolution. Whether it's on the proposed property in Dedido or another suitable location on the island, the Guam Environmental Public Health Laboratory needs to be built. And it needs to be built as soon as possible. This facility will provide the laboratory equipment for our food safety and mosquito surveillance and control programs. Currently, all food samples, whether for surveillance or a response to a foodborne illness investigation, have to be sent outside the department, usually off-island, which can be challenging financially, logistically, and in the turnaround time for results. However, with the establishment of the food lab, the Division of Environmental Health foresees a day when much of the testing can be done locally for this lab. It is our goal to first develop the lab's capacity to conduct quick and simple tests for heavy metals, pathogens, and other contaminants. The lab will be testing the water dispensed from the many water vending machines, which is a popular subject these days, and the water manufacturing facilities found on the island. Then eventually we hope to expand the food lab's operations so that it will be able to perform more sophisticated tests using advanced instrumentation and techniques. We have been in communication with the U.S. Food and Drug Administration about the development of this lab, and they are committed to providing us guidance and recommendations. Just as important, if not more, than the food lab will be the mosquito lab. Thank you. Guam is a host to many species of mosquitoes that are capable of transmitting the viruses that cause malaria, dengue fever, Japanese bee encephalitis, filariasis, Zika virus, and chikungunya. With the anticipated military buildup and the expanded influx of foreign temporary workers coming from areas where mosquito-borne diseases are endemic, this department must be prepared to prevent and control mosquito-borne disease outbreaks. Nearly every year, Guam gets a report of an imported case of a mosquito-borne disease infection that was contracted by a returning resident or visitor while visiting overseas. The threat of introducing a mosquito-borne disease to Guam is real. Yap State is currently experiencing an outbreak of over 1,000 suspected cases of chikungunya, while Tonga is experiencing for the first time ever, a similar outbreak of chikungunya that has affected more than 10,000 of their citizens. And that's as of April 2014. Zika virus is now spread to the Cook Islands, infecting as many as 175 individuals. And again, just looking at the geography, it's all around us. The situation in Fiji is even more alarming, with their health ministry confirming 11 deaths and over 10,000 individuals afflicted with dengue fever as of March 2014. The Philippines, Palau, Hawaii, and Indonesia have also experienced similar outbreaks, and also some states in the south now. The construction of the Guam Environmental Public Health Laboratory will benefit the entire island, as it will expand the department's ability to implement active surveillances for food and mosquitoes, so to better monitor threats to the people of Guam. Bill 287-32 will provide a suitable site to build this facility. We believe that the land exchange proposed in the bill is a win-win situation for public health and the Chamorro Land Trust Commission. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gillen, for your testimony this morning. Gentlemen, if I can ask your indulgence in this case, because we do have a number of legislative measures on the docket. If we do have your written testimony, we recognize that, but if you can just provide some brief comments reflecting your testimony, your written testimony, and we can go ahead and proceed. I did notice that Mayor Savares is in the audience, so please, if we can invite her up if she would like to provide testimony. If not, then we're okay, because we have received a copy of the resolution by the Municipal Planning Council endorsing this particular project. Mr. Duenas, please identify yourself for the record and proceed.
My name is Michael Duenas. I'm the Executive Director for the Guam Housing and Urban Renewal Authority. Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to say that GURA is here in support of the passage of Bill 287. We have been involved with the Department of Public Health since I believe April of 2011 in terms of getting this project off the ground. As Mr. Gillen indicated, when we looked at the initial proposal just to expand the existing public health facility in Mangilau, there were some issues in terms of the availability of land, our ability to meet the parking requirements, the ability to hold to manage stormwater runoff, which would reduce the amount of land that would be available for any building. And so the recommendation from our staff was to look for another site that would be more appropriate, and we were looking at about an acre minimum. Okay. At the same time, we were aware that public health was also pursuing funds for another laboratory, and that's when we recommended that they pursue 2 acres, look for 2 acres so that we could co-locate both laboratory activities. After some review, we recommended that they pursue the available government land adjacent to the Northern Health Center. Okay. And that's after some discussions with the Department of Land Management. They basically said they gave us one scenario in which we could expedite the exchange of land, and based on that recommendation, we proceeded with the process to contract to let out a contract for the construction, for the design and construction of the lab. Unfortunately, the former director, Monte Mofness, passed away, and in dealings with when Mr. David Camacho was as the acting director for land management, did indicate that not all the pieces were in place to complete an administrative exchange, and that we would have to go and pursue a legislative approval for the land exchange.
Thank you very much, Mr. Duenas, for your testimony. Mr. Borja?
Senators, I'm Michael Borja, the Director of Land Management. I did submit written testimony, and basically we are saying the same thing in the written testimony as we said for Bill number 332. In the discussions with the commissioners of the Chamorro Land Trust in making this a motion to approve the transfer of properties, one of the things that was overwhelming in our discussion was that the need for a mosquito laboratory facility on Guam was pretty important for the well-being of all people on Guam. And so we saw that need. The only thing that we had a concern with is that we wanted to ensure that the mayor of Dedido was advised of this decision or this requirement to move a mosquito or build a mosquito facility in Dedido, and we just needed to get that information or that concurrence from the mayor. And with the Municipal Planning Council of Dedido giving a resolution and to approve this, then it was all set in motion for us to approve it. And we did give it have a motion to approve that transfer as well at the time in 2013. So we do support the construction of the marine laboratory, or excuse me, I'm sorry, the mosquito laboratory in Dedido, and with the exchange of properties from the Chamorro Land Trust.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bora, for your testimony, gentlemen. Just a follow-on question in regards to some of the comments that were asked a little earlier with the previous legislation. I'm looking at 117,943 acres in exchange for 10,931, or is it 117.943?
No, sir. The
square meters.
That's the reservation of the entire area in Chalampago,
Okay.
of which only 8 acres of that 117 is for public health.
Okay, so
that
you're
whole
extracting from that particular parcel.
Right, from that tract.
Okay. And then also the issue with regards to the zoning, because you're talking about a major structure that will be constructed on that particular property. Is the zoning appropriate for that facility?
Actually, it's public facility. The zone right now, how the plan was going to work out, they were going to consolidate the 2 lots because they're just adjacent lot. And as Director Gillen had mentioned, at one time that whole basic lot was dedicated for public health. And since then, things got server out, the portion that's not being used. So yeah, the plan again is to consolidate the lot to get with the basic lot for public health, and it's appropriately zoned as public facility.
Okay.
Yes.
Senator Barnes, any questions?
Cizo Masi, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, before I ask my question, I'd just like to acknowledge the presence of Mayor Jesse Gogwe, who's here, and former Senator Tello. And if either of them wanted to speak on any of the bills, I welcome that. But my question, if I can, just for RAD to go back to 332, based on what was accepted on 287 with the resolution from Dedido's Mayor's Council, and you guys being the government agencies, at any time was the Mayor of Tamuning and the MPC involved in the collaboration of 332 for the foster home?
We've asked the mayor and the vice mayor on separate occasions. They're still telling me they'll get back to me to have an MPC.
What was there? Was there any contention with the mayor, the vice
None.
mayor? None at all. Did they support? Did they tell you orally that they supported those
Yes.
efforts? Yes, they did.
Yes, but I would not mind going to the council for that also.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, if I may, just so that we can have that noted onto the public hearing notes, it's important based on our, I guess, rules of getting the collaboration of the mayors of the facility that will be built in their villages, is they usually have a public hearing through their municipal planning council, and then they get that. And if I'm not mistaken, that was in the works, but I just wanted to make sure that that was identified, and if we can have a follow-through sooner than later. Okay.
Mr. Gillen, if by any chance you can communicate, even if the mayor, I understand that the MPC does not meet, they meet like once a month. So even if you get documentation from the mayor endorsing this particular project, forward it to Vice Speaker Cruz, and then we'll incorporate it as part of the report. I do know that you mentioned a few times that this is time sensitive, so the sooner you're able to provide that document, we'll be able to
Thank you.
incorporate it in the report. Thank you very much. Any other questions, Senator Ada?
For land management, I guess the 2 acres that's being requested for the facilities, for the public health facilities, does that basically take up all of the Chamorro Land Trust property in this area?
No. No, it does not. It's just a
What's-
portion of,
How large is the Chamorro Land Trust property that,
I have to get back to you on that, sir. I don't know, but it was not, it was only a part of it. Do you know the answer?
About 5 acres.
okay,
About 5 acres.
The remaining on that portion is 16,000 square feet.
okay. And Gura has determined that the $3 million facility plus the anticipated $13 million facility can all fit on a 2-acre property?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Again, what James and then Tom and I talked about again, building again the structure so we minimize the usage of the land, and that's how we came up with the two acres.
Okay, fine. And again, just for the record, I still have the same concern here in the exchange of property on a area for area basis versus a value for value, such that maybe conceivably, if it was done on a value for value, it would probably wipe out the 8 acres that public health has reserved, as opposed to just the 5 acres out of Asinan.
And Senator, I do take that as a note because in many of the dealings that we do within land management, it is value for value. We'll be discussing some of that a little bit later on in today's bills, but you're correct.
Okay.
We do look at value for value on almost every other case.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Senator. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your testimony this morning. And if there's any additional comments you would like to provide to the committee, please forward it to Vice Speaker Cruz. We're going to proceed with the first item on the agenda, revert back to this legislation, Bill number 341, which is relative to rezone lot number 14U, block number 16 in the municipality of Dededo from multifamily dwelling R2 to commercial.
He's coming back at 11 because he thought the vice speaker was going to recess. So the 340, these three here is one person, and so he'll be back at 11.
Okay, I stand corrected. I understand that the individuals who are scheduled to provide testimony in 341, 342, and 343 will be here in about 45 minutes based on previous discussions with the committee chair. We're going to proceed to Bill number 345, which is an act to amend Section 3, Section 4, and to repeal Section 6 of all of Public Law 21-130 to authorize Department of Land Management to exchange private property taken for the construction of the Agate-Umataq Highway with government land. And we do have several individuals who have signed up for providing testimony. If there's anyone else in the audience who would like to provide testimony on this measure, please proceed to the table to your right and ensure that you notify the committee personnel. So we do have Mr. Mike Bora from Department of Land Management, Ms. Janet Kinata from Umataq, and Manuel Aquinino from Santa Rita. So Mike, Mr. Bora, if you can proceed with your testimony, please.
Thank you, Senator. Again, I'm Michael Borja, the Director of Land Management, on concerning Bill number 345 for the exchange of parcels of property in the let me just see. For the Agate-Umataq Highway. I submitted two written testimonies, one dated June 10th and one dated August 1st. The June 10th testimony just basically gave some specifics on describing the lots and then deleting one of the lots because for drainage purposes. On the August 1st testimony that I submitted, I am also asking that in this bill that because it does specifically speak about value for value, it did not give the specifics on the definition of how to obtain the value for value. So we asked that they add the following: the Department of Land Management shall have the properties to be exchanged under this act appraised by 2 independent appraisers licensed to do business on Guam. The 2 appraisals shall be completed within 180 days of this act. The averages of the 2 appraisals shall be used as the values for the basis of such exchange. Then we would take 3 lots from Block 5B, Tract 3241, to be appraised with the average of the 2 appraisals used to determine the price per square meter for the land exchange. And the department shall have such properties surveyed, mapped, and registered. We are also requesting a sum of $20,000 to be appropriated to the Department of Land Management to conduct the appraisals. We support this land exchange, but the definitions of how we have to obtain it, I think, are quite important, because in dealing with a specific case currently, that definition is what's saving the day on getting the job done, because it has to be specific to that point on how we obtain this value for value determination.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bora, and very extremely legitimate concerns on behalf of the people of Guam. Please identify yourself for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Buenas and good morning, Mr. Chairman and committee members. My name is Manuel Aquinino, and I'm appearing before you on behalf of the family of the late Gregorio Q. Goffigan, Victoria G. Sanchez, Silva G. Quinata, Luis G. Sanchez, and Mr. Herbert Goffigan, as listed on Bill 345-32. On behalf of the family, I wish to inform you of our support for the passage of Bill 345-32, introduced by the late Senator Ben Pangilinan. This bill is an act to amend Section 3, Section 4, and to repeal Section 6, all of Public Law 21-130, to authorize the Department of Land Management to exchange private property taken for the construction of the Agate-Yamadak Highway with government land. It has been 22 years since the passage of Public Law 20-133 and Public Law 21-133 that identifies 17 lots that were taken from our family for the Agate-Yamadak Highway Expansion Project, and the authorization of the government of Guam to provide our family with a fair value property exchange in the Yamadak subdivision. Unfortunately, it was found that some of the lots identified in Public Law 21-133, Section 4B, for exchange in the subdivision were slopes and was deemed undevelopable. Your serious and considerate decision and passage of this bill will bring closure to our claim for an exchange of our property taken for the construction of the Agate-Yamadak Highway. Since the passage of Bill number 897, signed into Public Law 21-130 by then Acting Governor Frank Blas, dated July 28, 1992, we have been very patient to this date. It is unfortunate that the majority of the landowners listed have passed and never got to see their property as intended in this bill. The family extends undangkalunas igsusmase to the late Senator Ben Pangilinan, may he rest in peace, for all his efforts and time spent in trying to bring this case to a close. He is truly a senator for the people. He had been working with Mr. Gil Quinata for several years, who also had passed 3 years ago. Mr. Chairman and committee members, the family also would like to convey their appreciation for your interest and desire in taking over this bill for Senator Pangilinan. Upon hearing of his passing, I immediately wonder if anyone would look at his pending bills. Thus, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for picking up where he left off as a gesture of his interest for the people. In closing, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, we humbly ask for your passage of this bill. Sigusmasi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Aquinino, for your testimony this morning. Gentlemen, thank you for your comments. Let me just first of all thank you also for recognizing Speaker Ben Pangilinan as the primary sponsor of this measure and the efforts that he and his office staff had undertaken in terms of putting this legislation together. And then secondly, I just want to also, on behalf of the committee, extend our appreciation to your families, because after 22 years, and this has yet to be finalized and closed, I think that by virtue of passage of Bill 345, hopefully that would end any further discussion and allow for the official exchange of property for property that your family had no longer had available by virtue of the expansion of the Yamadak Agate Highway, Southern Highway, many years back. So I just want to thank you and your families, and we certainly, at least from my perspective, certainly look forward to the eventual passage of this and working with land management so that it can be effectuated soon. Thank you, Mr. Aquinino.
Thank you.
Senators, any questions or comments? Senator Barnes?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, as I was looking at the recommendation from the Department of Land Management and noting that the following government parcels, each containing, instead of 926, it be amended to 940. and square meters is what I'm looking at, right, Mr. Borja? But based on the description of the property, some are larger. The majority of that is larger than what is asked for the amendment. And maybe I didn't hear it correctly, but was there any specific reason for the amendment? I'm looking at this, right?
Right. I think we may have surveyed out the lands, and in surveying it, they tried to allot them all to that correct amount of 940 square meters equally for all the blocks that are the Block 5B, Track 3241, and there's a list of lots down there.
Yeah, because just based on the areas and the actual square meters, there is a couple of descendants who receive 7 times more, or as noted, or if that was taken away. So in exchange, you're only asking the government exchange the acreage or the square, the area of only up to 940 square meters. Am I reading that?
No. That the properties, the parcels that are listed here, their size is 940 square meters. But we're in this value for value. What we're going to determine is that, in the case of one family, if the value came out to, let's say, $100,000, and the values of each of these tracts were $30,000, we would give them what is fair for that amount. And we'll take it from these lots that are listed on this bill.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Borja.
Thank you, Senator Juan. Senator Tamara?
I certainly support this bill, and I just hope that insult was not added to the injury by requiring you to continue paying the taxes on these properties. I hope that wasn't the case, or was it? No. Okay. But I guess to land management, inevitably, this is going to open Pandora's box, because although, this is the right thing to do in compensating the private property owners rightfully, as I understand it, most of Route 4 from Umatag to Maritzo to Inarajan are really, the government does not own clear title of those properties. So I'm just curious if Governor Guam still has sufficient property to be able to make similar land exchanges, and I'm sure other bills similar to this are going to be coming through. Are you aware of that?
I'm aware of another bill I am aware of a bill that's pending right now. I can't recall what the bill number is, but it's to do exactly that thing, to compensate people whose lands may have been taken since 1994.
Right. And of course, part of the ramifications of the government not having clear title of those tracts of land that our highway is located on is that we cannot use federal money that gets made available for the maintenance of our or the reconstruction of our highways for as long as the government does not have clear title of it. So, I just anticipate that there's going to be more of these demands being made, and rightfully so. I just hope that the government has enough properties to be able to meet to satisfy the requirements. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Ada. And I would just want to add to the comments, Mr. Bora, for recognizing that the value for value, the appraisal needs to be conducted, and then requesting that additional funding mechanism. I understand that your land survey revolving fund does have some additional resources beyond the projected revenue base for this fiscal year. So could that conceivably be utilized as a source?
Most likely.
Okay. Now, do you have the discretion to utilize that, or do you still need the authorization appropriation?
No, I think I still need to get the authorization to use it.
Okay. Thank you very much, gentlemen. And Mr. Aquilino, again, thank you to your families. We'll see what we can do to expedite this as quickly as possible.
Thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to proceed to the next measure, which is Bill number 347, introduced by the Vice Speaker to rezone lot number P10.9A 3R19 in the municipality of Dededo from agriculture to commercial. The number is 347-32COR. Is the signing sheet? Okay, I understand that family members were also instructed with regards to this measure to come in at 11 o'clock to provide their testimony by virtue of the committee staff, so thank you very much for alerting us to that. We're going to go ahead and proceed to bill number 329, and that is an act to rezone lot number 2-1 new tract 132 in municipality of Aga from one family dwelling R1 to commercial zone. And I do have Lance Kawahara. Mr. Lance Kawahara, Michael Borja, Irene Maliaman, Deacon Lisa, Alfred Maliaman, and Lena Jomli, and Lydia. If I can ask you all, if there's anyone else in the audience who would like to provide testimony on bill number 329, please proceed to the table to your right and alert the staff. Other than that, we're going to go ahead and proceed and receive testimony. Please, folks, if you can identify yourself for the record and then go ahead and provide your comments. Ma'am, we'll proceed with you.
Thank you. So we're here. I'm Irene Igmalis Malyaman. I'm the pastor of St. John's Episcopal Church, St. Andrew's, and St. Michael's. These are the three churches of the Episcopal Church in Micronesia. And in behalf of the Episcopal Church in Micronesia, we appear before you to appeal for the passage of Bill number 329-32. Just to summarize what the bill is about, it's for the rezoning of the property in Agat, which is a one-family dwelling zone. And we have been using that for church since 1972. Last year, we were made aware that it's a one-family dwelling zone. It's in a one-family dwelling zone. And so we stopped doing services there and joined our sister church over in Upper Tumon, St. John's Church, while we asked for the rezoning of this property to commercial so that we can continue to do the ministry and mission of the church in Agat. So that's our appeal.
Thank you very much, Ms. Maliaman, for your testimony this morning, sir.
Lance Kawahara, and I'm in support for bill number 329-32. Again, as the pastor said, the church in Agat had opened its doors in 1972, and in 2013 it was discovered that the property did not have the conditional use permit to function as a church. So at that time, we had asked that the services be ceased, and I would like to have the senators support this bill so we can continue services there. And I also would like some clarification that in the event that this bill is passed from changing the zoning from I1 to C, will the church still have to go through a conditional use permit process?
That would be responded to very shortly by the Director of Land Management. Okay, but thank you very much, Mr. Kawahara.
Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony this morning. Mr. Moore?
Senators, on bill number 329, while we support, churches and we want them to continue their worship, what we find in this particular instance is that the pursuant to zoning code, despite legislative intent to rezone the present location to commercial, the actual action of zoning law will not allow the existence of a church without a conditional use permit. In consideration of our findings, historical responses for most rezoning requests to the commercial zone is not favorable with nor within the social well-being of the community, as it limits and caters to a specific intent and in most cases not satisfying the general convenience and welfare of its surrounding community. Further, standards of assessments are necessary while we refer to the potential impacts of elements definitely affecting the immediate community, not limited to the safe egress and ingress, parking accommodations, ease to traffic congestion, location and dimension of the proposed buildings with significant consequences of proposed development, the development's design, potential positive or negative effects to the adjacent land uses, and public input, particularly from adjacent property owners and the immediate community. We therefore recommend this rezoning request be subject to the support of the public opinion, particularly by the community, and rendered through the appropriate processes. In respect to potential impacts to our mandates as requested by the Bureau of Budget Management and Resources, passage of Bill number 329 will not have any effects, and we thank you for the opportunity to comment. One of the issues in just arbitrarily assigning something to a commercial zone without the conditions is that you leave that piece of property quite open to all kinds of things for the future development of that area. And if the community doesn't have the ability to make any comments to what goes in there, I mean, a commercial zone as a commercial zone, while today it might be used as a church, tomorrow it could be used for some other kinds of activities that may most definitely be on the objection of the neighborhood or to the village community itself. And that's the reason why conditional use permits are most likely required in many of these kinds of circumstances when we go through the process of zoning.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bora, for your testimony this morning. So in light of the desired rezoning and the purpose that has been highlighted, I understand your concern about rezoning it to commercial. Would you recommend, or can you conceivably recommend, language that would allow for the conditional use and be specific?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Please, if I can request that from Department of Land Management, because I believe you bring up a very legitimate concern. Anytime that you're rezoning to commercial, it has a lot more expansive allowances in terms of usage, unless that is your original intent in addition to utilizing it for a church, then we need to understand that. Otherwise, I would like to request that the committee work directly with Land Management so that we can work on that conditional use permit allowance and allow you to proceed with your plans. Okay?
Correct.
So unless you have any other concerns or issues that you would like to utilize the property for, we're going to look at possibly, I'm going to request that the committee possibly consider redefining the allowance or the rezoning so that in fact it provides you that opportunity to utilize the property as a church.
And if I may just add one other thing to probably help expedite their process here, is that they could also talk with the mayor of Agate and yes, to actually have this brought up before their municipal planning council as a subject for their review, and then to obtain a resolution from the municipal planning council of Agate approving your request, and that would expedite things quite quickly, because that is a process that's required. Whether or not you go through the normal standards, I mean, we try to get in every instance the community's involvement. One of the other issues that we have in doing something like this is what is called spot zoning. You're not allowing the territorial, the Guam Land Use Commission the opportunity to determine whether or not, if the whole area, let's say, is surrounded by just R1 or agriculture, and suddenly you plop a C, right, a commercial zone right in the middle. Is that really what the community wants, and is that what the future development of that community is looking for? And perhaps can this be served with some other? It can still stay as an R1 or some other zoning with the conditions for them to operate under that church in that facility.
So please, Mr. Bora, if I can request verbiage language that can be forwarded to the chairman in regards to that, and redefining the allowances that based on the intentions and the desire of the property owners, then we can proceed with that. I think the idea about spot zoning is certainly a major issue, but right now at this point in time, my understanding is that we do not have a land use master plan for the entire island community, and that's what makes it very challenging. I know that at one point in time, this government invested about $8 million in a proposed master plan that was viewed as being too restrictive too many requirements being imposed on Guam residents / many of our businesses out there. So that master plan, unfortunately, albeit spending $8 million in investing in that, did not pass through the communities and this legislative body. So that, I think, is always going to be the challenge with regards to spot zoning, unless we do have a generalized master plan that would allow to address the concerns you have. Because obviously, if you have a residential area, you don't necessarily want a massive business structure there unnecessarily, unless the residents concede to that. So I appreciate your testimonies this morning, Mr. Kawawara and Irene Maliman. Thank you very much for your testimony this morning, and thank you very much, Mr. Bora. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to proceed to... Oh, I'm sorry, folks. If you can hold on for a second, Senator Ada, Mike. Senator Ada has follow-up questions.
I've seen bills come through the legislature asking for rezoning, and usually with those bills there were extenuating circumstances as to why they chose to come through the legislature as opposed to going through the normal rezoning process. So I'm just curious as to why. Maybe I should ask that to the property owners as to, was there extenuating circumstances? You can't afford to go through the normal process, or this was just most convenient
No,
for you?
at the beginning we were going through the process, and I had some assistance from the land management of possibly reissuing the conditional use permit. And during that interim, I was speaking to someone, and he had said, why don't you try talking to certain senators? They may be able to assist you. So thinking like an engineer, I took the path of least resistance, and I started talking to the assistant for Senator Duenas, and said possibly we could help you. And then when the bill was formed, and we were informed that it was going to be changed possibly from R1 to commercial, and I looked at it and I said, if it's zoned commercial, we still have to go through the same conditional use permit process, and we're here today. And so, but there was no reason why we didn't want to continue with the land use commissioner by having this zone changed or getting a conditional use permit. But this process was just something extra that I was told that could be done, could ease the time element of having this process, because the church has been without services since 2013, and we're trying to expedite the process.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Senator Ada. Thank you again for your testimony this morning. I believe that copies of the public notices with regards to this legislative measure was forwarded to the Mayor's Council, or the Mayor of Agate. So we have yet to receive, or the committee has yet to receive any documentation with regards to that. So I certainly hope that she can be able to provide at least a community perspective in terms of your proposed structure. Senator Barnes?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just based on the recommendations from Mr. Bora to the folks here, the residents here, at any time during this project, was the mayor consulted, or the municipal planning council members, were they consulted on your move forward with this zoning prospect?
No.
Also, so you didn't.
I had kind of overlooked that, but getting back to the other church in Dedido, we did contact the mayor in Dedido and got her blessing.
And just for the record, Mr. Chair, usually it was at least for this 32nd Guam legislature, common practice was that if you got the support from the municipal planning council and the mayor and the vice mayor, or the mayor from your village, that it would make it even more supportive for the bill to be facilitated through, because you've gotten the efforts for the residents who've lived there, the opportunity for them to speak at the village level, and then they'll get the consensus, formulate the resolution based on the public hearing, and then present it to us. So that's been the usual practice for the 32nd Guam legislature, and the recommendations on hand. It makes it easier for the policymakers to look at what the sentiments of the village residents as it relates to the property on hand. But also note that yes, the legislature has the authority to do and make zonings, and we have had the opportunity to look at spot zoning also based on the conditions, but there was a lot of documents that were provided for the process. So thank you, Mr. Chair, for at least letting me reiterate that comment for the record.
Thank you very much, Senator Barnes.
Relocated from Hawaii in 2007, and I'm learning.
Thank you. No worries. No worries. But it'd be much easier to work it that way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again, Senator Barnes. And folks, thank you for your testimony this morning. I take it you're going to remain there for the next proposed measure. We do have Mayor Savaras, who's in the audience. Mayor, if you would like to join us, you're more than welcome to. And we can go ahead and proceed with Mayor, because you're the recent incoming individual at the table. I would like to yield to you first. This is bill number, I apologize, this is bill number 330, and it's relative to rezone lot number 2-R3, block 2, track 172, municipality of Dededo from one family zone R1 to commercial zone C. Mayor Savaras, you're recognized.
Okay, and thank you. For the record, my name is Melissa Savaras, and I'm the mayor of Dededo. We have given a resolution of support for a renewal on their conditional use for another 10 years. And I believe we did this last year. So I will forward the resolution of support, but it was for conditional use. Now I'm looking at the bill, and it does say for rezoning to commercial. Now what I'm going to do is I do have a Municipal Planning Council meeting next week, Tuesday, and I will put it back on the agenda for the change of zone. I'm not quite sure. We're going to have a hearing on this at the village level, because the neighborhood knows it is an agricultural zone, currently an agricultural zone with a few homes in the area. And the neighbors do support the conditional use for the 10-year period. This is our second renewal, right, on the conditional use. But to change it to the commercial zone may be a concern for the neighboring residents.
Mayor, I appreciate you bringing your concern and your perspective to the table, because it was just discussed with the previous measure, and I'd like to also lean forward and ask Department of Land Management if by any chance they can give us the verbiage to allow for specific uses, the conditional use permit for specific uses as your municipal council had entertained. And it's for church services.
It's for church services, and that's why the neighborhood also agreed.
Correct, and that's why we need additional clarification on the intent of the property owners. Now, if they're going to deviate from that and allow general usage for commercial purposes, then you revisiting the issue would be very appropriate.
And that would be a concern for the neighborhood. It's a small community in that particular area. If it should change to a commercial zone and the church decides to sell it, the new owner may want to do other commercial activities, which would be a concern for the immediate neighborhood.
Yeah, and that's why I alluded to leaning forward and asking Land Management if they can provide us that specific verbiage which would allow for church uses. Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Kawar, or...
Same comments.
Same comments?
Our intention is strictly to continue the church services.
Okay.
And I kind of found, I was thinking about them, but commercial may not work because of the exposure that property has in that area that the director had brought up, and I concur with him.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah.
Ma'am? Same comments?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Barr?
Thank you, sir. Again, on 330, this specific lot had been given a conditional use permit for a church that was only for a period of 5 years, and that had expired. So we can continue with an application to do this for, I don't know, as long as we can do it, and still keep it within the same zoning of an R1 with all the conditional use permits required. And then it can go through, but with the Municipal Planning Council of Dededo already submitting an approval for that specific case, not going to commercial, then that would help expedite this process as well.
Now, are you recommending going your route, or are you recommending that we still proceed with the legislation but keep it at R1 with the conditional use verbiage?
Well, we've already had this process where we've approved it, and we can just go through and just get the, with the Municipal Planning Council and with other information we may have already obtained for this, and just extend this permit again.
Are we okay with that, or did you want to continue to proceed with the legislation? Because
is that the same as reissue?
Pretty much.
Well, it's definitely a reconsideration through the. Sorry, thank you.
Go ahead and identify.
My name is Marvin Aguilar. I'm the Guam Chief Planner for Department of Land Management. It would be, the consideration would go through the Guam Land Use Commission, of course. And if you want to use the term reissue, yes, you can. But they would have to, it's just a, I guess, a refreshing of existing conditions and how the community may or may not be impacted by the process. So you've got good representation through the MPC right now, so that's a very positive attribute of your project right now.
Thank you, Mr. Aguilar. Now it comes back to exactly how the committee is going to proceed forward with this, because the Municipal Planning Council has endorsed this with the specific purpose as outlined in the legislation. Department of Land Management now is stepping forward and offering an option to go through the renewal process, and then now we're back to this proposal. What is the desire of the property owners?
To work with land management and give us the best direction in the quickest time to have that either conditional use permit or the agate property from R1 and getting a conditional use permit in the shortest.
Then let me put a request on behalf of the committee. If by any chance within 2 weeks, if that process is accommodating your requirements and your request, then by all means continue down that road, Mr. Bora. And if in 2 weeks you would like this legislation to be further considered, then we certainly will work with the mayor, we'll work with the Department of Land Management to see what we can do to expedite it through the legislative process. Okay? Only because Land Management has offered their direct assistance in terms of renewing an existing or a previous conditional use permit. So I want to thank you all very much for your testimony this morning. Senator Barnes?
I just wanted to make sure, Mr. Chair, that based on the findings, that then if the conditional use would be provided to the church, that there would be no need for the legislation moving forward because the conditional uses will be provided, right?
It's only whether, in fact, it's a whole new application process, because that could conceivably take anywhere from 30, 60, 90 days. So it comes back to the property owners. But based on the conversation here, it looks like, in fact, the Department of Land Management and the mayor's office will be able to work collectively and see if they can push this through. That's why I set a timeline. Please, if I can ask the committee staff to notify Senator Duenas, the sponsor, that you try to work this process, and if in fact it's amenable to you and acceptable to you in 2 weeks, then this committee will continue to keep this legislation in the committee rather than reporting it out. But if you would like to proceed with this subsequent to your discussions with the mayor and Department of Land Management, then we can proceed otherwise and entertain this on the floor. Okay, so that's the offer on the part of the committee, because obviously if Land Management is willing to step forward and consider a renewal, not necessarily a whole new application with regards to the conditional use of the property, then I think that may be an even more expedited process.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Senator
Okay.
Alger.
Thank you very much again, folks, for your testimony this morning.
Thank you.
You done? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to proceed to Bill number 349. Do we have anyone? Not until 11?
Take a minute.
Okay. I want to thank the committee staff for being expeditious and bringing some of these measures forward in terms of individuals attending the hearing. We will proceed now with Bill number 341-32 COR, introduced by Speaker Ben Pangilinan, an act to rezone lot number 14U, Block 16 in the municipality of Dededo from multifamily dwelling R2 to commercial. And we do have in conjunction with that, I understand there's 3 measures that would directly affect one family. So we're going to go ahead and invite everyone who has signed up for that. We're going to also collective or jointly hear Bill number 342-32, which is to rezone Lot 22, Block 9 in the municipality of Dededo from residential R1 to commercial, and then also Bill number 343-32 COR, an act to rezone Lot number 16, Block number 16 in the municipality of Dededo from multifamily R2 to commercial. So we do have Mr. Borja signed up and Mr. Alan Singh signed up for all three measures. So please, if you can join us, Mr. Singh. And Mayor, if you would like to join us, if by any chance you would like to provide testimony, by all means, you're welcome to join us. Gentlemen, we're going to yield to the Mayor of Dededo. Mayor, if you would like to provide your initial comments, and then we can proceed with any other testimony.
All right, again, for the record, my name is Melissa Savares. I'm Mayor of Dededo. Yeah, I've just been speaking with the property owner. I've advised him that we will have a Municipal Planning Council meeting on Tuesday, the 12th of August, and he will provide us with the information on the plans for all three lots, so that we can act on it and discuss it during that time. And then we will send a resolution to you just in reference to the three bills, the three properties.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Mr. Singh?
Good morning, Senator Ogan.
Buenas.
Senator Ada, Senator Barnes. The reason why I thought about considering converting the lots, which are R2 to commercial, was several years ago there was a teenage girl who tried to cross the street to Marine Drive to go to the other side of the street, Payless, and unfortunately she was hit and killed. And I thought if we can do something with my properties, which is along the Buena Vista Avenue, and have some light commercial activities, then perhaps the teenagers, the kids, don't have to cross the street to the other side to go buy drinks and what have you. Buena Vista Avenue historically has some commercial activities already, so it wouldn't be very different from what I'm proposing. Of course, I want to cater the businesses towards the kids and the community in that area, such as coffee shops, the cyber cafe, or perhaps even like a laundromat. I've had some friends who have given me inputs that they would rather use a laundromat than to use their own or to buy a washing machine, even if they live in a single-family home, because they don't want to deal with the water issue, they don't want to deal with the power issue, they don't want to deal with the repairs of their washing machine and dryers and all that. So that's one of the reasons why we're considering going to commercial. And it's going from R2 to commercial, not the R1.
Thank you very much, Mr. Singh. Mr. Barr?
Thank you, Senators. I did supply written testimony for bills number 341, 342, 343, 347, and 348 collectively, because they all pretty much deal similarly, that you're going from either a residential or agricultural up to a commercial. In each of these cases, we do have a process within land management and within the Land Use Commission to approve these zone changes. And once again, the input from the Municipal Planning Council is a very important element in the approval process. But aside from that, all the regulatory agencies that are required to review these also may have some inputs. Now, looking at these specific three bills for this gentleman, with the surrounding areas most likely already may have already been designated as commercial. It may not be an issue altogether to change it to commercial, but we still need to be able to establish whatever conditions may be necessary that for the property owner to convert these properties to commercial if some of the things do not exist presently for that lot. And so the process in which he needs to go through with land management is, I feel, quite necessary. We do not recollect that any of these three issues were ever brought before land management for a zone changing process in the first place, and so we humbly ask that they do go through that process first and foremost. And if they do encounter any significant roadblocks along the way, then I'm not going to deny anybody the ability to use all avenues that are available, such as going through the legislature, and I'm not denying you, the legislature, either your obligations and rights to be able to rezone as you desire. But what we do ask is that you allow us the opportunity to have all the regulatory agencies as well as the respective municipal planning councils to also understand what is going to be happening in this case. And as I stated in my testimony, the written testimony, in most of these cases, the zoning changes most likely can occur, but there may be some issue that might arise that a regulatory agency outside of land management may say is necessary. And it could be whether it has adequate water supply or whether it has adequate sewer or whatever, or to dictate the necessary requirements that if they want to put a multi-unit dwelling on this property as a commercial and build a high-rise or whatever, that the proper electrical connections be conducted. So in this case, we support all zone changes, especially to the benefit of the community and the benefit to the landowners. We do not deny that. We just humbly request that we have the opportunity to allow it to go through the review process that has already been established.
Thank you very much, Mr. Borja. I appreciate your testimony, and folks, thank you for your testimony this morning. And Mayor, the committee would be looking forward to receiving comments from you. And Mr. Singh, I think Mr. Borja, as a general statement, certainly has a very legitimate perspective in terms of having recently assumed the seat as Director of Department of Land Management. I think that not only yourself, but the general community will find out that he has continued to work aggressively with our people in terms of either rezoning property or taking into consideration conditional use permits. So that's, and I appreciate all your efforts, Mr. Barr, and your testimony this morning. Mayor, thank you very much. And Mr. Singh, thank you for your testimony. Yes, Mr. Singh, you have an additional comment?
Yes, I do. I did go to GWA, and I did ask them if they can verify the infrastructure, at least with GWA portion. And I do have a statement from the engineer department that it is adequate.
You do have it in black and white?
Yes.
If I can ask you to provide a copy to the committee so that can be incorporated into the report. It's just that, Mr. Singh, there are other additional regulatory agencies that certainly, in terms of reviewing 3 separate measures within the same general area, it would only be beneficial to them and to the community in terms of reviewing those. So, and not only that, I think most importantly, getting the concern and the issues and the support of the Municipal Planning Council was also very appropriate. So, Mayor, thank you for at least considering these measures in your next meeting. Appreciate it. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Get his name and number. Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're getting there. I want to thank Senator Ada for his patience. And we're going to proceed to bill number 347. And Mayor, I understand that you're going to remain there at the table, and as well as Mr. Borja. 347 is an act to rezone lot number P 10.9A-3R19 in the municipality of Dededo from agriculture to commercial. And we do have Mr. Borja as well as Mayor Savares signed up to provide testimony. Anyone else in the audience here who would like to provide testimony, I ask you to please proceed to the table. If not, Mayor?
Thank you for the opportunity again. Again, my name is Melissa Savares, Mayor of Dededo. We do have a resolution, a Municipal Planning Council resolution of support that I did provide to staff to support the rezoning from agriculture to commercial for these 2 lots. We did restrict it to, there are 5 housing units within the immediate area of these properties. We have the Saga and Ipalpao area, Ipalpao Estates, Woodland Townhomes, Benson Subdivision, and now Paradise Estates that are located within the immediate vicinity of these 2 properties off Chalanlanghit. We have a DPW report that was presented at the Municipal Planning Council meeting that does show that the roadway will be adequate for the zone change as well as the regulating agencies from GWA, EPA, and GPA.
Thank you very much, Mayor, for your testimony of this proposal. Mr. Barr?
Like the previous 3 bills on Bills 347 and 348, again, the process in one of them, I think there's already a conditional land use on one of those properties where they were allowed to build a convenience store. And so the store is there, and now they're changing it to commercial. In light of Mayor Zavarez's Municipal Planning Council resolution supporting the change to commercial zoning, I mean, that would have been our most overwhelming concern. But likewise, we still need to understand what are the concerns of some of the other regulatory agencies, to include, EPA and others. So in light of this, I mean, we're not going to stand in the way of someone's desire to improve their livelihood and their for their business and for this property. But we still would prefer to have had them go through the channels. But we would like to get a copy for the record from the Municipal Planning Council, and we'll be in touch with Mayor Zavarez's office to obtain all these Municipal Planning Council resolutions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Barr, for your testimony this morning on this proposed measure. We do have another individual that has joined us at the table. If you can identify yourself for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Yes, my name is Elmer Mercado, and I believe they asked me to come back at 11 for a personal testimony.
On bill number 347?
Yeah, 34932.
Okay, we're coming up to 349. Okay. Yes, thank you, Mr. Mercado. Thank you again, Mayor, as well as Mr. Borja. I relinquish it now to the chair. Mr. Vice Speaker, we have bill number 348 and 349 pending.
Thank you.
348 and 349.
Thank you very much. Can we just take a short recess? I know that we invited a number of people to come back at 11. Did you take care of it? Oh, okay. 349. You're the main sponsor. Do you want to make an opening statement?
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice Speaker, Mr. Chairman. We do have the Mercado family representative here who's going to provide testimony with regards to this particular measure. But if you'll take a look, Mr. Speaker, at the legislative findings and intent, I think it's very much explanatory. This family came into inherited property and it was not appropriately zoned. And now they're approaching the legislature to ask consideration in terms of getting it the appropriate zone, and I look forward to some of the comments by not only Mr. Mercado, but Department of Land Management. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Excuse me, Mayor. We have a couple of other Dedito properties that I was going to hear at 11. Did you wish to make? Oh, you went through? Okay. Oh, that's it. You took care of it? Wow. Please.
Okay. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Benjamin J.F. Cruz, and members of the committee. Thank you, Senator Frank Uggan, for introducing Bill number 34932 to your committee and entertaining my request to rezone our property from agricultural to R2. My name is Elmer Mercado. I am a resident of 162 Sergeant Peter Uggan Street in Barragata. I've been a resident of Guam for over 30 years. My parents purchased the property in 1984 and slowly put up a temporary house. 5 years later, my parents and the siblings self-constructed a 2-story duplex with the intent to put their children to college. Once the siblings started college, the economy wasn't doing well, so my parents converted the duplex into a fourplex building to help us pay for college. In 2005, my father passed away, and in 2009, my mother. But before she passed away, she was fighting cancer for 8 years. The siblings went through a costly cancer treatment with my mom, and the probate set us back financially. As children and heirs of the property, my sister and I are trying to legitimize what my parents have set up and would like to pursue this request to rezone our property as supplemental income to help alleviate our financial burden. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Did you wish to provide testimony?
Yes, sir. Thank you again on Bill number 349 on the issue of the property to be rezoned from R1 to R2 in Barragata. I'm sorry, I think it's from agricultural to R2 in Barragata. The issue, as I said before, is we would have preferred the process to go through our chain, but in this specific matter, while we always want to make sure that the land zone changes are to the interest of the owner, in this case, the zone change is a requirement because they obviously are not an R1 or even an agriculture. They go well beyond that, and they're an R2. If they had gone through the process of trying to obtain the zoning change through us, and we went through the regulatory agencies, in this specific case, and it's an R2 requirement, the sewer changes that EPA would require, or the wastewater change requirements for EPA would be that they could not use a septic tank, but they would have to be hooked up to a sewer. What we know of this specific property is that the only active sewer line resides up on Route 16, which is about 4 house lots away and above the house lot. So it would be an incline for a sewer waste line to go up in that area. What the regulatory agencies always try to do in all aspects of zone change requests is to try and find alternative ways for them to still obtain that zone change so they can realize what they need. In this case, I think what EPA, and I can't specifically speak on their behalf, but through our practice with them, is that they may have to build something and not use a septic tank at all in this case, but not use a leaching field, but to build multiple septic tanks that would have to be regularly pumped out, and that would satisfy the requirement for a multi-unit lot like an R2. And so we respectfully ask that in the zoning change that there be conditions placed on this R2 change that should be necessary, and that's only speaking for one specific kind of issue. I don't know if there are any others. If GPA would have to also look out there and see that all these different units are not on one power meter, that they all need to be on separate power meters, for example. Those are the kinds of things that are necessary for obtaining an R2 property. And in this case, it should be an R2, but does it comply? Most likely it may not comply on some cases. So we ask that this individual property owner do work with the regulatory agencies to achieve what's required, and that there be conditions placed on the change to R2.
Besides the septic tank and the possibility of having to review with GPA, are there any others that you think that we need to address?
That's pretty much sure.
Well, in some cases, again, the Municipal Planning Council for Barragata needs to have some kind of input on this matter, especially since it goes from an agricultural to a R2. There's a significant jump. Now, just to let the gentleman know that it doesn't even have to, this process for going from agriculture to R2 can be based on the signature from the Director of Land Management, and it does not have to go through the Land Use Commission. It can be made into a summary zone change. Now, many of the same requirements stand with a summary zone change as far as getting the regulatory agencies' inputs through the application review committee process, but it doesn't have to go before the Land Use Commission itself. But once all those conditions are satisfied, and then the chief planner's office does any kind of notice of action, then it's based on the signature of the Director of Land Management. So it can be a much quicker process.
Can you sit down with them after this hearing and see if there's a way that you could expedite this?
Sure. Like in the previous folks for their other bills, we are going to work with each one of them, but there are steps that are necessary, and we're very willing to work with these individuals.
Thank you. Do you have any questions?
Now, Mr. Mercado, I think that you've heard directly from Mr. Moore, the Director of Land Management, who just recently assumed his responsibilities, and he's extending the assistance and the guidance of his department. What I'd like to request is that you work, or your family representative work closely with his office, and if by any chance you're not proceeding satisfactorily within the next 2 weeks, within 14 days, then I would like to request that if you would like to proceed with this legislation, then I will work with my colleagues to see if by any chance we can proceed. But I anticipate that your efforts will be very fruitful working with Department of Land Management. So if I can ask you to consider going that route initially, and within 14 days, if by any chance, like I said, if it's not satisfactory in terms of the timing of the process and the progression of the discussions, then we can come back and revisit this particular proposal. But the intent is to make sure that your family has optimal usage of your property, and I believe that you were very, no pun intended, you were very frank about why you would like it to be rezoned, so that you can at least apply some of your economic benefits and assist your family. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And in as much as all the bills will have the record open for the next 10 days, it might behoove you to see if you can move it faster through him, through the director, than with us, because we go into budget session next Monday, and I don't anticipate it reporting these bills out until September anyway. So if you can work with the director and you guys can work this out and then get back to Senator Uggan, or get back to my office and tell us that it looks like it's getting resolved and you're satisfied with the treatment that you're receiving, then we won't need to go this round. Okay?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We only have one, or is that it? Three. One of the two, either 48 or 49. 49, 349. We just heard 348. 349, is that also your property, sir?
Yes, I'm
349.
I'm 349.
Oh, 348 then.
That was me, 349.
Yeah. You're the only one in 348. I don't know.
Right, 348 was done. That was the previous
Okay.
testimony. I think that was the last bill.
Is that everything? Well, great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Senators.
And I'm glad we didn't have to break. I mean, I had to run off to a meeting, but we took care of everything when I go away. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Okay. Marvin Aguilar.
Hi, Marvin.
let me just close this hearing properly. Bills 341. Bills 341, 342, 343, 345, 347, 348, 349, 329, 330, 287, and 332 will be considered having been heard this morning, and with no further testimony, we will announce that the committee record will stay open for the next 10 days. The committee report, anybody out there in the public who wishes to provide additional testimony can provide testimony to the Committee on Appropriations. Fax number 477-2522, and that's 477-2522 for fax. You can send it to 155 Hesler Street, Hagåtña, Guam 96910, or you can send it digitally to senator@senatorbjcruz.com. All the bills having been heard, this committee will stand adjourned.